Welcome to the show. It's the Jerry Ratcliffe Show, and I'm Chris Graham, joined by the Hall of Famer Jerry Ratcliffe. And it's game week. We're back to having games to talk about. UVA football season kicking off on Saturday down in Nashville against number 10 in the coaches poll, number 12 in the writers poll, Tennessee. And Jerry, today, as we're recording Tuesday, Coach Tony Elliott releasing a depth chart for the season opener, also talking with the media, so we have a feel for what this team will look like roster-wise, two deep-wise. So where do you want to start? And maybe I'll start with any surprises when you look at the depth chart in terms of just looking down that two deep and seeing who's playing and who's not playing.
Well, I don't know if it's exactly a surprise, but it was a delight to see that Matt Ganyard is kicking off. Just like we talked about in the last podcast, Chris, that his dream is coming true right before our very eyes. He's set to be the kickoff man Saturday when Cavaliers go down to Nashville, and it could be that his toe will make the first contact with the football on Saturday. Who would have ever thought that?
He wouldn't have thought that as recently as about 4 weeks ago. As the story was going, he said it was his application for a waiver to the NCAA, which had originally been denied. He was waiting for that appeal as of 4 days, I think it was, before training camp started. So he wasn't even sure a few weeks ago if he'd ever, even have a chance to be on the team. He goes from that to he's gonna be kicking off on Saturday in front of a big crowd. So yeah, what a story for Matt Ganyard.
Yeah, it's and a great story for college football. I think everybody in the country watching that game there'll probably be something done on Matt Ganyard by whoever's televising it. Is that an ESPN game? I haven't even looked.
ESPN or ABC, same. I think it's an ABC game, but it's the same family of networks. So
yeah, so
maybe something on game day that morning. As an example, ACC Network should be working on a package there too.
Yeah, I see Joe Tessitore will be the play-by-play. ABC, Jesse Palmer will be analyst. I'm sure they'll bring it up, and Katie George, sideline reporter, will probably have a report on that at some point during the game. So that'll be something the Wahoo fans can be proud of. The complete depth chart is up on my website if you want to check out the whole thing. For all you out there watching, I guess some of the good news, it looks like the offensive line is mostly healed up, Chris. Mikhail Boley is starting at left tackle. There was some doubt as to whether he would be ready. And that allows them to have Blake Steen as a backup for him at that spot. And Steen can also, I think, play right tackle or left guard. So gives them a little bit of flexibility there. Noah Josie appears to be back from his injury at left guard. And that means Ugana Nana, the transfer from Houston, will start at right tackle. He started out camp at a guard position, but they found out that he was better suited for tackle. So probably some good news that the offensive line is on the mend, and that should help out Tony Muskett a little bit come Saturday against the Volunteers pass rush and perhaps against the running game. On defense, we knew that Antonio Clary was probably going to be questionable for the game. He's been out. And Langston Long, Jr., will start at strong safety. I don't know that they would go with Clary unless they absolutely had to. I know he's been pushing, trying to get back, as was Chico Bennett, who they thought he's a fast healer, and they thought he might possibly make it. But Tony Elliott was talking about how he had been walking with him that right before the press conference, and he was pushing to get back too. But it looks like he's going to have to wait until next week's JMU game to be back in action. And interesting to see that the two transfers, defensive backs, Sam Westfall from SMU and Malcolm Green from Clemson are going to play at the right corner spot. Both of them will play in the game. Looks like Westfall might actually get the start, but both are scheduled to play. And Westfall, I believe, was a corner, and Green was a safety, but I think he's moved over to corner. The rest of that secondary is Tavon Kyle, Jonas Sanker, Long, as we mentioned, and Cohen King. Most of those guys with experience in the system a year ago.
Yeah, 3 transfers among those guys back there on the 2 deep in the defensive backfield. Jimmy Chris, the Penn State transfer, still on the shelf. I think I read from the transcript of Tony Elliott's press conference that maybe he'll be back next week, perhaps, or at least be able to start training again next week. Right side of the offensive line is 2 transfers. Brian Stevens is the guard, and he was well regarded. Really, really nice ratings on Pro Football Focus, at least, for his work. And so, no other surprises for me as far as that goes. Looks like there's depth in the line, which will be needed. Last year, there wasn't a lot of bodies back there. I think at times playing with 7 or 8 guys. So looks like there's some good options there for Tony Elliott and Des Kitchings to work with. And so the question then is, looking at Tennessee, they'll be starting a new quarterback, just like Virginia will be starting a new quarterback. Virginia will be starting Tony Muskett, as we've discussed. We were talking about that last show. Muskett winning the battle in camp. Anthony Calandria listed at number 2 on the depth chart. It'll be Joe Milton for Tennessee. He's a guy that transferred in from Michigan a couple of years ago. Originally beat out Hendon Hooker for the starting job at Tennessee when he came in 2021. He played 2 games, got injured. Hooker took over. Hooker put up some video game-like numbers for a couple of years. But then he got injured at the end of last season, missed the last 2 games, and Milton came back in, ends up being the MVP of the Orange Bowl, a 31-14 win for Tennessee over a good Clemson team. And he comes in now as a 6th-year senior he looks like the kind of guy that you think is a pro quarterback. He's 6'5", he's 235, he can move, he's got a cannon of an arm. The one thing he doesn't have is a lot of experience. He started 9 games in his college career in 5 seasons, but he's preseason All-SEC. I mean, he's got a lot of accolades, a lot of expectations. And that's a Tennessee offense that scored 46 points a game, averaged 525 yards per game last year. Big challenge for the Virginia defense.
Yeah, and Milton has by far the strongest arm in all of college football. So I'm sure he'll be testing Virginia's secondary a lot. But they also have all of the running backs back from a year ago, and there's 3 of them with significant yardage coming back. A couple of receivers, including Squirrel. What was his last? Squirrel White. Squirrel White. One of the top receivers coming back, and most of their offensive line. I think they have a couple of new guys in there, but that's a very experienced offense and put out, like you said, incredible numbers last year. Led the nation in scoring and points per yards, total yards per game. And so John Rudzinski's defense will be tested early and often, and it'll be interesting to see how they hold up against such a powerful unit. I don't know that Virginia faced anybody anywhere in that, even in that category last year that could boast any numbers anywhere close to those. And so it'll be something to see. We talked at length with Tony Elliott during the press conference today. I asked him about Tennessee's defense and how he expects them to attack Virginia, and he also elaborated on Tennessee's offense and how powerful it is. We'll have stories on that coming up later. But one thing that was interesting he said about that offense is that they're not they take unusual width in their splits, and they split their wide receivers way out toward the sidelines, and they open up. Their splits are so wide along the line that they kind of open up holes. They just got to make sure they win their one-on-one battles, because they create, with those splits, they create a lot of one-on-ones, and they put the defense in a bind, because you have to really call your defense quick and get aligned quickly and make adjustments, because it's not your standard splits that you're dealing with. And Tennessee runs at such a high pace, Chris, that's forcing defenses to make quick decisions and get lined up quicker than normal. So that's added pressure to already defending an explosive offense.
If there was one weakness for this Tennessee team last year, it was on the defensive side. Now they only gave up 23 points a game, so they at the end of the day they were doing what they needed to do in limiting points, but they did give up 405 yards per game, and there could be a little bit of a function of the fact that Tennessee on offense does play so fast. They line up quick. They're moving the ball. Even when they have scoring drives, a sustained scoring drive for them may be still quick strike for most teams. And then if they happen to, have a 3-and-out or not be able to move the ball very far, it's going to happen quickly. Whatever happens quickly with that offense. And so the defense is going to see some more plays and thus maybe some more yards. But that's the game plan for Virginia going in has got to be to try to attack that defense. Yes, we know from I was listening in to Josh Heupel yesterday, his press conference. They're going to attack. They're going to sack the box, try to take the run away, make Virginia throw the ball down the field, middle of the field and down the field. But from Virginia's standpoint, ball control. It's got to be, let's see if we can move the chains, sustain drives. Virginia's got a punter in Daniel Sparks, who's one of the best punters in the country. So when drives fizzle out, make Tennessee have long fields. It's got to be to try to shorten the game, limit turnovers. Tennessee defensively did force 2 turnovers per game last year, so that was one way they kept points off the board. But that the game plan for Virginia, shorten this game and see if they can frustrate Tennessee by keeping that offense off the field for long stretches.
Yeah, you're right, and there won't be chances to catch your breath very much, because there's a new rule in college football, and I can't say that I like it. I don't know why they keep messing with the game every year, but no timeouts after first downs this year. So that's just going to make the game flow even faster. So you don't have time to diddle around on defense or anything else. You got to be ready. And but you're right. Tennessee is going to load the tackle box and see if they can force Tony Muskett to make mistakes. And that's going to be part of I'm sure that's a significant part of their game plan. Even Elliott said today that Muskett's not going to be able to hold on to the ball. They want you to hold on to the ball more than 2.8 seconds so they can sack you or force you into throwing a bad pass. And so Muskett is going to have to be at the top of his game, whether that means he can stay in the pocket or if they're going to have a moving pocket to try to alleviate some of that pressure, or maybe throw some screens or short passes to the tight ends or something to slow that pass rush down, and try to make him not be just a sitting duck back there.
The game is a sellout. We got press releases on that just before we started recording. But I'm going to say I don't mind the fact that it's a sellout there. In the sense, there's going to be a lot of Tennessee fans. Obviously, it's going to be mostly, if not all, Tennessee fans. But it's not going to be as many of them as there would be in Knoxville.
That's true.
It'll be
Instead of 105,000, you'll only have maybe 63 of the 65.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not going to be quite as bad, from that standpoint. So yeah, it could be worse in that sense, but still it's going to be a challenge for Tony Muskett. I remember talking with Tony Muskett at the ACC kickoff. This has been a few weeks ago, obviously. And, one of the questions was basically, what's the biggest crowd you played in front of when he was at Monmouth, started for 3 years at Monmouth. And, he remembered maybe it wasn't the biggest crowd, but the loudest crowd. He was talking about playing North Carolina A&T there on their homecoming, and how that historically Black school with a great band, and the fact that the crowd came out for the halftime show because it was homecoming, and it was a very boisterous crowd. But that'll be probably about a fourth the size of the crowd he'll play in front of on Saturday. And that's going to be a challenge for him. But the moment is there. I mean, this is what this team has been getting ready for. What's the sense from Coach Elliott, Jerry? You were there today for the presser. What's the sense in terms of confidence going into this one that he has and that maybe the team has?
Well, he's going to use this as a gauge to figure out exactly where his program stands and what they have to do to catch up to become more competitive in the ACC. I asked him specifically, I said, Tony, you've in your years at Clemson, you coached in national championship games, you coached against some of the best teams in America in incredible environments. Does that help you in any way get your team prepared for a game like this? And I think he believed it did. He's trying to get them to channel their energy in the right ways and not expend all their energy in the first quarter and with nervous energy and trying to get it all done, but to try to spread out that energy throughout the game. Play the person, not the jersey, not the name on the jersey. Just to be intelligent and how to handle your emotions in an atmosphere like that, because I don't know if any of these Virginia guys, Chris, has played in a game in that kind of atmosphere. I'd have to take a closer look, but the last time none of these guys, I don't think any of these guys played in the Orange Bowl in 19, right?
I was thinking the same thing. I don't think so. Right off the top of my head, I don't think so.
And so since then, they really haven't played in an environment anything close to this. So it's a new experience for all these guys, and keeping your composure, even if things go haywire out of the block, is going to be significant, because if you don't, things can unravel quickly against an opponent like this. And they're like sharks smelling blood in the water. If they sense that you're intimidated or losing confidence, they will eat you alive, because this is what Tony called big boy football. He's expecting big boy football out of Tennessee, and that's what we're going to see. And so you can't panic. You gotta keep your composure and try to hang in there and focus and do the best you can.
One name comes to mind. Mike Collins he was on the team at least in 2019. He skipped the 2020 season because of the COVID year, but Mike Collins, he's listed second on the depth chart at running back, which I'm a little disappointed at, but also just the fact that he's even on the team. When you think about November 13th of last year, he had life-threatening injuries in that mass shooting. I know Tennessee is going to do some special things before this game. There will be a moment of silence. I think Josh Heupel, the coach there, talked about they're going to put decals on the back of their helmets honoring 115 and 41, the Lavelle Davis Jr., Deshaun Perry, and Devin Chandler, the three young men whose lives were lost on November 13th. That's obviously a part of the story going into this game. This is the first game since November 13th. Virginia missing his last two games last season for obvious reasons. Coach Elliott talked about that part of this, the emotion that will go in from that standpoint. Jerry, talk about what he addressed as far as that goes today.
Yeah, somebody mentioned turn tragedy into triumph, and he said, his simple answer was that every day is a triumph for us, and the fact that just Virginia is back playing football again, and it's an opportunity for them on a national stage to just show how resilient that the human spirit is. Those were his words, and certainly they'll be doing everything they can to honor the fallen teammates. They're going to wear special patches on their uniforms. I imagine decals on the helmet as well. And some of the players will be wearing the numbers of those three slain players. And I think I'm not sure. I'd have to recheck my notes if they're going to maybe rotate some of those numbers around through the season, or if these guys are going to keep them permanently. I know that Bettinger, the place kicker, was close friends with Deshaun Perry. They went to the same high school and were friends. And I think he's going to. Well, I know he's going to be wearing Perry's number 41 in the game. It's wrong on the depth chart. They have him as wearing 17. He'll be wearing 41. But I think that is probably part of the emotions that Tony was also talking about in channeling their energy. We've seen things like this in the past at other schools. You can get too emotional and get too wound up, and it backfires on you. So you got to be careful with that, and not. And it's great to be inspired and play for those guys, but you can't let it rule your thoughts and keep you from focusing on the assignments at hand and that sort of thing. You can get distracted and become so emotional that you can't think. And so I'm sure he's addressed that with them. And he said that it's part of it is also this program. They need to learn how to win. We thought that they did last season coming in, but obviously that didn't happen. And if you look at Broncos' last two teams, they were both 500. So hasn't been a lot of winning. The 11 to 14 wins in 3 seasons, last 3 seasons, and so he believes this team, this program, has to learn how to win all over again, and that's a slow, painful process.
Yeah, I remember sitting in the press box up there with you after for me, I was sitting in the press box after the Orange Bowl game. And that team had won the ACC Coastal Division, had played Clemson in the championship game, played Florida really well down in that Orange Bowl. I'm hearing Bronco talk about how far things had come in 4 years. And, I was thinking about how they would continue to be built upon. And you're right, 2 500 seasons thereafter, Broncos gone 3-7 last year. We're back to square one in a lot of ways from that standpoint. And it's just, I wouldn't have imagined that. I wouldn't have imagined that night, late December of 2019, that would have been the case. But so realistically, Jerry, you've been around for a lot of these openers, 40 some years. What do you think is best case scenario? What should Virginia fans kind of expect out of their team this weekend, and what should make us happy? It's going to be tough. Tennessee's a 28.5 point favorite, so the writing's on the wall as far as that goes. But what can Virginia fans rightfully expect and maybe be happy with after this is over?
Wow, that's a tough question, because I think it depends on how the first quarter goes. If they can't allow Tennessee to come in and dictate the pace and control the ball, control the clock. Even if it is a quick strike offense, and they can score from anywhere on the field with an arm like Milton has, they've got to just line up, make sure they line up correctly and stick to their fundamentals and try to be competitive and try to prevent the big play, make Tennessee earn everything they get, and not turn the ball over, not have blown assignments, give up explosive plays. If they do that, who knows? They could extend this game into the second half. Maybe get a couple of turnovers. You never know. We've seen stranger things happen in opening games. As good as Tennessee is, it's still the first game of the season for them as well. And we've seen better teams than Tennessee come out and lay an egg or make mistakes or have penalties, turn the ball over, stuff like that. Anything like that can help Virginia and give them confidence to hang in there and perhaps extend the game. But if things go haywire early and they let Tennessee take control, and if Virginia is the one making mistakes, it could be just a blowout, frankly. you can't mess around with a team like Tennessee, because just about any mistake you make, they're probably going to capitalize on it, and they're going to be trying to force you into mistakes. So these guys have their work cut out for them. It's asking an awful lot of a team that's somewhat inexperienced, particularly in games of this kind, to go into the Lions' den and play flawless football. It's tough. I mean, a lot of people are expecting blowout city, 56-0, 50-7, stuff like that, and it could very, very well happen. I think Virginia, and there's no such thing as a moral victory, but I think if Virginia can hold Tennessee's scoring down to 30 or less, and maybe get a couple of touchdowns on the board themselves somehow, I think they would have to walk out of Nashville feeling pretty good about themselves and learning lessons that can help them next week against JMU in a home game and even beyond. But I mean, the odds of that happening are not very good. Tennessee's not a 28-point favorite for nothing. Those guys in Vegas aren't stupid. It could very well get out of hand, and the game could be over by halftime. We don't know, but if they can somehow hang in there to the second half and keep it respectable, then I think Virginia gets everything they can out of this game. I don't anticipate one of those shocking upsets by any measure, but if they can just go in and be competitive, at least for a half, they can't feel too bad about what's going on, because they're going against big boy football.
I'm reminded of the scene at the end of the comedy movie. I think it was 1990s comedy movie Dumb and Dumber, where Jim Carrey's character, he's a real doofus. He's there with the female lead who's very attractive, and he's asking her what chance he might have with her, and she's going down the numbers, and he says, okay, so 1 in 100, no. 1 in 1,000, no. 1 in a million, maybe 1 in a million. And he says, so what you're telling me is there's a chance.
Right.
And then I put that in the context of ESPN's Football Power Index. They give their, the ESPN folks run a simulation 20,000 times. They play the game on their computers, and they spit out how things are going to go. And according to the FPI, 87.5% chance that Tennessee wins this game, which means they ran the simulation 20,000 times. Somehow 2,500 times in those 20,000, Virginia won the game. So how that happens, I think you laid it out, Jerry. Virginia's got to take care of the ball in the first quarter, shorten the game, maybe get a turnover or two early, frustrate Tennessee. Those teams that play fast-paced, whether it's basketball or football, they hate it when you slow them down. Tony Bennett's really good at it. See if Tony Yellow can be good at it, but if the offense can stay on the field a little bit, even if they don't score, just stay on the field, get some first downs, even if they have to punt them back into deep into Tennessee territory. If this game is one score or a 10-point game at halftime, Virginia gets the ball in the second half, has a chance to make it interesting. Tennessee, they're the 28-point favorite. They might have the pressure on them then. The home crowd gets a little unsettled. You never know what can happen as far as that goes. It's a hot day. I looked at the forecast, going to be in the low 90s, no chance of rain down there in Nashville. First game of the season, both teams will be substituting liberally as far as that goes. Yeah, lots of things can happen. It can happen the other way too, of course. Virginia can have some early mistakes, and it can get out of hand early, and that can set the tone in a negative way, not just for this game, but maybe for a few games after that. So, I'm going to go back to Dumb and Dumber, Jerry. You're telling me there's a chance. I think there's a chance.
Yeah, if I were a betting man, and I were ESPN, I would recheck those computers, because even though there's a chance, I don't think Virginia would have, even if you played at 20,000, sometimes they would win that portion of games. But sometimes fast teams make mistakes because they're at such a high pace, and they there is a tendency to turn the ball over. It's kind of like a triple option offense. When you're handling the ball so much, there's going to be mistakes made, and sometimes you can play faster than your brains can operate. So, yeah, there's a possibility that Tennessee can turn the ball over, make some mistakes, and hand Virginia some good field position. Who knows? But uh, it'll be interesting to watch, regardless what happens, just to see the how big the chasm is between a top 10 team and a team that's trying to rebuild it with a relatively new system.
So, Jerry, I think we got folks ready as much as we can, at least at this point, for that. We wanted to talk maybe, as we're getting towards the second half of our show here, ACC expansion news possible. Maybe today, maybe sometime this week, or maybe not. Maybe the news with expansion is there's going to be no expansion. We don't know where that's going to be. But what is the latest as far as where we stand as we're recording this around 5:30 on Tuesday?
Yeah, well, as of now, nothing has happened, but there has been a lot more conversations. The presidents were supposed to meet, I think, via a phone call or a Zoom or something last night. I don't know if there would have been another straw vote taken, but at least they would have felt out if anybody had changed their attitude toward expansion. And naturally, out of respect, that meeting was postponed due to the live shooter that was on campus in Chapel Hill last night that had that university locked down and frightened, as we have all experienced ourselves. So we don't know when that meeting will occur. I don't know if it'll be tonight or sometime later this week, but I would think I've heard that there's sort of a soft deadline by the end of this week for the ACC to come up with a yay or a nay, and it sounds like that perhaps somebody has softened their stance. I don't know if it's North Carolina or NC State or maybe even Clemson for that matter. I don't think Florida State has. But it sounds like somebody may be willing to change their vote. And if that's the case, then I fully expect SMU, Cal, and Stanford to be members of the ACC starting in the 24-25 season, Chris. And wow, got your plane tickets ready for San Francisco or Dallas?
Or Dallas, or yeah, maybe both some years, right? As far as the scheduling goes, not just for football, but for basketball too. That could be interesting to see. Well, we'll both JerryRatcliffe.com and AugustaFreePress.com will be on top of whatever the latest is. I just checked my phone as we're recording. I didn't want us to miss an opportunity if there was that kind of breaking news, but nothing still as we're talking here right now. So, but yeah, there's going to be some news one way or the other in the next day or two or three. So Jerry,
sounds like that. Just we keep hearing varying numbers on what ESPN will offer annually. It's been estimated between 50 and 72 million. And the ACC can take that money and divvy it up how it pleases annually. And I think one of the models is that a bulk, or at least a good part of that money, would go to teams that excel in the postseason, at least in football and men's basketball. And there could be some portion of the money that goes to member schools. I don't think that would be a lot, but a little bit's better than nothing. And they could reserve some of that money for travel expenses for teams that have to travel to Texas or California or Las Vegas at a neutral site. So that's that's still, that's Florida State and Clemson were barking about more money that could resolve some of those issues. And sweeten the pot for those people should they excel in the postseason, and give them, break up this equal revenue that the conference has been discussing ever since spring meetings.
It wouldn't make up the difference between the ACC and what it pays out to its schools and what the Big Ten and SEC pay to their schools, but it's something. It's
right.
It's moving in a direction, maybe not the direction that some folks in Tallahassee and Clemson, South Carolina would like to see, but it's at least a step.
Yeah, so and you wonder if the Pac-10 was talking to Apple about a streaming service. You wonder if that could still be brought back up again. And I saw that today that the ACC, which officially opened its offices in Charlotte today, never thought I'd see that happen 20 years ago, but they've agreed to a new deal with something called Theater, I think.
I saw that. Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Like 75 games and bowl games and stuff will be available in varied theaters around the conference, I guess. So people can go to the movie theater and watch certain ACC games, and I guess football and basketball. And I'm not sure if there's other sports involved, but it looks like that they are exploring every possible revenue avenue that's out there. And maybe by the time all this adds up, Chris, they will narrow that gap a little bit.
I've never done it because we're always pretty much at the games doing our job, but I've seen that the Paramount Theater in Charlottesville for years has, on a sort of ad hoc basis, they'll put up on their movie screen, they'll put up, the Virginia Tech football game or a Virginia Duke or Virginia Carolina basketball game, ACC tournament games, NCAA tournament games, that kind of thing. I know when we were in Minneapolis for the Final Four at JPJ, they put the game up on the scoreboard screens there for fans. A lot of fans came and watched the games at JPJ. So there's interest in that, it seems, to as a potential revenue source. I'm not sure if I would head out to a theater myself and do it, but obviously there's a market for it. And they also, theater companies do the same thing with like boxing and MMA and pro wrestling and things like that. So big events, there's a new trend in this direction. That's interesting to see the ACC making a formal deal. That was interesting news today.
I guess a lot of people like the atmosphere. There's a lot of similar fans there, and all. It's probably more exciting than sitting on your couch at home, and you can have your popcorn and Raisinets and drink there with you, and bathrooms not too far away. So
you don't feel too stupid yelling if you're yelling with other people. When you're in your house by yourself and you're yelling at the TV, you feel kind of like an idiot. So that doesn't stop me from
your dogs tend to look at you like, what's wrong with you?
that doesn't stop me from doing it. It just, you don't feel very good afterwards. So you feel maybe a little more at home there with the other fans. You're right. All right. Well, Jerry, anything else as we're maybe getting ready to wrap up the show here?
I think that pretty much sews it up, Chris. I'm just so happy for Matt Gaignard because, we spent close to an hour with him last Thursday over at the George Welsh Indoor Center. And just to be around him and see firsthand his passion and his enthusiasm and excitement about what all has happened to him, it's just makes you feel good as a human being to see something good happen in today's world where we've got so much gloom and doom. So it's it was just fun. I'm so happy for him and his family and those people who have supported him along the way.
Yeah, what a story. Look forward to seeing him kicking the ball off, and and he's number 2 on the depth chart as the place kicker as well. So he may get some action there down the line too. But yeah, he's a heck of a story. Military pilot, MBA student now, father of 2, 34 years old, grandpa, they call him, playing football. That's just awesome story. Well, Jerry, as we're wrapping up now, we go ahead and thank our sponsors who help make all this possible for us.
Yeah, let's start off with Roback. Got my doggy here, my doggy logo, my Roback shirt on. one of the fastest growing companies in America, sports activewear. You can look at jerryratcliffe.com, click on their ad. You can get 20% off your first order. Helps us and helps Roback, and they're a company located out on Route 29 in Charlottesville, started by Darden School graduates. They're big UVA supporters. They have NIL deals with UVA, as does one of our other podcast supporters, the Good Feet store over at Stonefield, right across the street from the movie theater. And Jonathan Cotton grew up in Crozet, UVA supporter, also NIL deals, does a lot of promotions for UVA athletics. Good guy with a great heart, and they have custom fit arches for your feet, fit in your shoes comfortably, and help you walk, help you stand, help you run, even if you're not having discomfort. So it's worth your time to go by and see them. I'm a customer, so I can testify that it works. And how could we not mention the Aberdeen Barn, Virginia's finest steakhouse? Incredible atmosphere, incredible food, incredible service. Makes my mouth water just to think of it. It's dinner time, Chris. I'm getting hungry. I'll go over there and run up a steak right now. So home game next week against JMU. Go by the barn on Friday night or Saturday. Get you a great meal and say hi to Terry and Angela and tell them that Chris and Hootie sent you, and maybe they'll throw you a couple of extra shrimp on the Barbie or something.
A little bit more in that glass of wine before they tilt the bottle back up. Now there's noon kickoffs this week and next week, so you can do Friday night before the game. You can do Saturday after the game. You got lots of options as far as that goes. And their steaks, they just melt in your mouth. They're so good.
Oh, yes, they do.
Well, thanks to the sponsors for making this possible. Thanks to the listeners out there, the viewers on the YouTube as well, for tuning in. My thanks to Jerry Ratcliffe, the Hall of Famer, for letting me be part of this show. I am Chris Graham, signing off the Jerry Ratcliffe Show. Everyone have a great week.